The D-Class runs through the halls of an empty grocery store with nothing but darkness around him. He turns corner after corner, searching for a door, but there are only endless aisles and stretches of blank walls. Nowhere to go, nowhere to run. Behind him, he can hear a soft, wet, gurgling sound. He turns, eyes wide in horror, and something pulls him down into the floor below, swallowing his screams. The day is drawing to a close, the sun dipping over the horizon as families across the small town wash up after dinner, placing their dirty dishes in the sink and starting to wind down for the evening. For those rare few with office jobs in this town, the workday stopped at 5 p.m., and now there's nothing but rest ahead of them until the day begins fresh again in the morning. But for the employees working the graveyard shift at the local, woefully understaffed grocery store, the day is far from over. There's closing time at 10 p.m., then cleaning, locking up for the night, and eventually, mercifully, clocking out. One of the workers, a young woman, watches the clock through heavy eyes, threatening to close. She shouldn't have picked up this extra shift. Working a double was overly ambitious today, and she can feel exhaustion creeping up on her, threatening to drag her down into an inadvisable on-the-clock slumber. It's almost 8 o'clock, only a few more hours to go. She can make it. Ordinarily, she'd try to make small talk with her coworkers, but several of them called in sick today. It's just her and one cashier, who's been on break for way longer than the allotted 15 minutes. So really, it's just her. She busies herself, shelving jars of peanut butter, watching the seconds tick by. More of the workday gone. More of her so-called summer vacation gone. But every hour worked is more money in the bank, more in the travel fund that will take her out of this town and towards something that might actually make her happy. She just has to save up enough, has to face these monotonous days and the same repeating carousel of faces a little bit longer. Then, it'll all be worth it. She tries not to think about the fact that her older co-workers have said the same thing about themselves, the ones who have worked here for 10 years. They all thought they'd be out of here in a year too, but they aren't. They're still bagging groceries for their neighbors and former classmates, watching the seconds tick by on that grimy old clock. As she reaches down for another jar, someone suddenly speaks just behind her. They ask if they can help her find anything. She spins around, startled, the jar slipping from her grasp and landing on the ground with a crash, glass and peanut butter sprayed across the floor. There's no one there. She must be imagining things, she thinks. But when she turns her back, she hears it again. She spins around, quicker this time, hoping to catch them in the act. There's something so familiar about that voice. Did another coworker come in after all? No, it's not one of her coworkers. Suddenly, as she hears the voice speak again, asking if she wants a paper or plastic bag, her stomach drops. She knows now. The voice is her own. That's it. She's officially too exhausted to keep working right now. There aren't any customers in the store, so she's going to head to the break room and try and get her head together. As she starts the walk there, she suddenly realizes that she can't find the door. The door to the break room is there, but where's the exit? The door she comes through every single day before clocking in. The doors that she practically sprints toward when her shifts close out. The ones that lead to freedom and home and the chance to remember herself as a person and not just an endless stretch of meaningless tasks. Somehow, the door is gone. No, that can't be possible. Doors don't just vanish. She's gotten turned around. She's misplaced it. She paces through the store, determined to find the door. But she can't. It truly seems to have vanished. Sweat begins to bead on her forehead, her hands trembling as she retraces her steps over and over again. It isn't an especially big store. She can't be lost. No, it's just her worst nightmare coming true. She can never go home, can never clock out. She's going to be at work for all eternity. Her mouth dries up. She has trouble swallowing, trouble catching her breath as her breathing becomes shallower, tinged with panic. It's an impossible situation, but she just knows that this is it, that she'll never get to go home again. At the same time, she's never wanted anything more in the world than to get out of here as soon as possible. If she doesn't, she could die in here. And she swore to herself that she would never ever die in this town. As she navigates the aisles, she can hear faint whispering, like people huddled together just out of sight, talking about her in tones just too hushed to make out. A few aisles over, she hears a sudden, piercing scream. Is there someone else trapped in here with her? She follows the sound to aisle 3, but when she peers down the aisle, there's no one there. At least, at first, there's no one there, until she looks down at the floor. There, on the yellowing tiles, a pale, translucent hand is poking up from the floor. The tile around it shimmers and ripples like still water disturbed by a pebble. The hand reaches up, further and further, stretching toward her. It wants her to reach out and grasp it, but the thought turns her stomach. That hand can't belong to anything human. So instead, she turns and runs in the opposite direction, stopping when she can hear the blood rushing in her ears and taste metal on the back of her tongue. As the sound of her pulse fades, her heart slowing, she hears another sound that causes it to spike all over again. A long, slow, dragging sound, like someone pulling something heavy across the floor. It thumps, then drags some more. There's a sound with it, too. A wet, strained sound, like a combination of water bubbling up from a drain and someone struggling to breathe. Every fiber of her being is screaming at her to run, to get out of there right now, but she can't move her feet. The sound draws closer and closer and closer, until everything suddenly goes black. If there were anyone passing by the grocery store at the moment, they would hear a scream cut short with a wet gurgle. The next morning, the manager finds her body still lying there in the same aisle. The store closes a few weeks later, never to open again. SCP-3182 is a derelict grocery store in the town of Denton, Missouri that hosts a number of anomalous phenomena during the hour between 7:52 and 8:52 p.m. each day. This window of time is referred to as a Deimos Event. Deimos events first began occurring following the store's closure, which is attributed to a combination of an economic downturn and the tragic death of a 17-year-old part-time worker. When a Deimos event occurs, all outside sources of visible light are rendered unable to penetrate the store's interior. Individuals inside during the event will insist that all exits and entrances have disappeared, preventing anyone from leaving or entering. It should be noted that video recordings of SCP-3182 during Deimos events show that the doors do not in fact go anywhere, indicating that SCP-3182 impacts the perceptions and mental states of those affected by it, rather than the environment itself. Some of these aforementioned anomalous effects include a sudden, overwhelming but inexplicable sense of distress or sadness, a sense of severe resentment toward the town of Denton, Missouri, the sudden recollection of memories belonging to former customers of SCP-3182, a sense of approaching danger, and the urge to do something to prevent or escape it, and an extreme desire to leave the area even though it is impossible to do so. These effects primarily occur in the vicinity of aisle 3 of the store. In addition to the emotional and psychological phenomena, there have also been reports of disembodied moaning and screaming, the appearance of humanoid apparitions, and the sound of something heavy being dragged across the floor. In order to obtain a more in-depth understanding of SCP-3182 and its Deimos events, researcher Dr. Gradian supervised a series of on-site tests. D-Class 132449 was selected for the first test, during which he was placed within the former break room of SCP-3182 and instructed to remain there for the full duration of the Deimos event. He was equipped with a camera and earpiece to allow for two-way communication between him and Dr. Gradian. At first, D-132449's attitude was casual, even cheerful, as he expressed relief at having nothing to do but sit in a chair for an hour. But after 7 minutes and 32 seconds passed, he began to feel quite differently. The D-Class became anxious, stating, "I've got to get home soon," before correcting himself to say that he would go back to his cell after the test concluded. 22 minutes and 19 seconds passed, and D-132449 became increasingly uneasy, asking Dr. Gradian if he could hear a strange sound. The noise was not detected on the video feed, but D-132449 insisted that he could hear something, and traced the sound to the broken microwave on a nearby table. In this close proximity, the video feed picked up the sound, a soft gurgling from within the closed microwave. Dr. Gradian recommended that the D-Class not interact with the microwave and that he return to his seat. The man refused, insisting that he had to know what was going on with the microwave. The gurgling sound grew louder and more intense, and Dr. Gradian insisted more strongly that the D-Class not open the microwave. But the man did not listen. He opened the microwave, and the video feed cut to black. The remains of D-132449 were later located throughout the plumbing system of SCP-3182. An inspection of the break room microwave found a viscous black liquid inside, which was extracted and taken to a nearby Foundation site. Analysis of the liquid's makeup concluded that it was genetically identical to several hundred past and current residents of the town of Denton, Missouri. During the next test, D-342089 was instructed to examine Aisle 3 during a Deimos event. First, however, he began in the break room. Before beginning the test, Dr. Gradian gave a strong recommendation that the man avoid pursuing the source of any gurgling sounds he might hear. D-342089 asked why, but Dr. Gradian dodged the question, instead asking the D-Class to move toward Aisle 3. Halfway there, he paused, spotting the words, "Get out of here right now," scratched into the wall over the main entrance. The D-Class remarked that this would be impossible given the lack of doors in SCP-3182. He would not respond to any reminders from Dr. Gradian that there were, in fact, doors in the building, particularly the very entrance door he had walked through to get inside. As D-342089 advanced further into the eerie, darkened store, almost at the infamous Aisle 3, Dr. Gradian checked in regarding his mental state. Aside from the atmosphere, which he deemed pretty damn spooky, D-342089 did not report any adverse mental effects. Before he could elaborate any further on how he was feeling, however, he quickly discovered that he was not alone in the store. A figure, a female humanoid in shape, stood at the other side of Aisle 3. She wore a simple shirt and flared jeans, and if one glanced at her quickly, she might pass for an ordinary girl, but she wasn't. As the D-Class stared at her, he could see her face shifting from ordinary human features to a warped imitation of a face, eyes, nose, and mouth moving out of place and drifting into abnormal configurations. As she raised a hand, he could see that it was a formless, fingerless blob. This was too much for D-342089. The panicked man fumbled around on the shelf next to him, searching for a makeshift weapon. He grabbed a cardboard box and prepared to throw it at the apparition. In response, she shook her head rapidly, warped features frozen in a look of terror. She opened her mouth, and the sound of hundreds of opening cash registers came out. She shook her head even harder, trying to communicate something vital to the D-Class. He refused to listen to the apparition or to Dr. Gradian, who warned him not to do anything rash. But he did do something rash. He threw the box at the entity with all his might, and as it made contact, he could hear a soft gurgling sound just behind him. Then, just as it did before, the video cut out. After the Deimos event concluded, D-342089 was found alive in a dumpster outside SCP-3182. He was, however, missing something: his skin. An investigation of the interior found that the message he had seen written on the wall had completely vanished following the event. During the third test, D-693221 was placed in Aisle 3 and directed to remain there for the duration of the entire Deimos event. Like the other D-Class before her, she was equipped with a camera and an earpiece. As the event began, she reported feeling extremely cold. Dr. Gradian suggested that she remain as calm as possible. She refused, insisting that she needed to leave as soon as possible. When she turned to leave, however, the apparition was standing at the other side of the aisle. Again, she repeated, "I need to get out of here right now. I need to get out of here right now." In response, the apparition nodded in agreement. Dr. Gradian reminded the D-Class that SCP-3182 would not permit her to leave, and she replied, "I need to get out of here right now, or I'll wind up like her." When pressed for further explanation, the terrified D-Class insisted that she didn't understand what she was saying. It was as if the words were being shoved into her mouth, into her mind. She turned to move toward the entrance, and a soft gurgling was suddenly heard. Dr. Gradian warned her to stop moving immediately, and she froze in her tracks. Once she had calmed enough to respond to further instructions, she was ordered to turn and look at the apparition, or rather, as Dr. Gradian referred to it, the ghost. When she met the ghost's eyes, it was shaking its head fervently, eyes wide with fear. The floor beneath it shifted like liquid, the gurgling sound growing louder and louder until human arms burst through the floor, grabbing the ghost and dragging it down out of sight. The ghost gestured frantically toward the exit doors, screaming until it disappeared beneath the floor. The gurgling stopped, The floor was still, and all was quiet for a moment. Then, D693221 was in full panic mode once more, repeating over and over again, "I need to get out of here right now." She repeated this constantly for the remainder of her video footage, running through SCP-3182 frantically, screaming and searching desperately for an exit. Dr. Gradian attempted to direct her, to calm her in some way, but it was as if she could not hear a word he said. She was lost in the dread, lost in the dark. After the Deimos event was through, D693221 was found healthy and unharmed, at least physically. There were no more scheduled tests after this, and she was administered amnestic treatment and returned to the prison population with a reduced sentence. While the woman formerly known as D693221 carried on with her life, the research team reviewed the footage from her test. One researcher analyzed a distinct tattoo visible in one of the spectral arms that reached up from the floor, matching it to that of a man called Colin Mathers. Mathers is the former manager of SCP-3182 and has no reason to be manifesting as a ghostly arm in his abandoned former workplace, given that he is both alive and, as far as anyone can tell, completely ordinary. That is to say, very much not a ghost. Further investigation into the apparition of the girl was conducted, including a series of interviews with past regulars and employees of SCP-3182. Many of those interviewed recounted anomalous activity far before the closing of the store, including an unseen entity that would mimic their voices. This particular detail inspired the research team to conduct one more test. D442099 was sent into SCP-3182, placed in Aisle 3, and instructed to remain there and attempt communication with the entities there via a Foundation-developed EVP detector. It should be noted that the civilian versions of this technology are far less effective. First, D442099 began with a simple, "Hello?" The response recorded by the EVP detector was a mixture of male and female voices, at least 3, saying, "What can I get for you today?" Next, he asked, "Can you understand what I am saying to you?" And the entities responded, "That'll be unintelligible." He followed with, "Can you tell me what you look like?" This seemed to provoke a more emotional response, and the EVP detector picked up around 7 mixed human voices saying, "Look at me. This place has ruined me. I should have moved to Jefferson when I had the chance." "Where are you now?" resulted in over 25 voices saying, "One day I'll have enough money. I'll get out of this place." The response to, "What is your name?" was too garbled to understand, as over 70 voices responded at once. "Please, I don't understand," was met with soft gurgling, which then suddenly cut off. "I don't want to die here," seemed to attract the attention of the lone female ghost, as one solitary female voice replied, "You need to get out of here, right now." "Can I help you?" the D-Class asked. The same female voice replied, sounding strained and frightened, "Please get out of here, right—" Her voice cut off. "Hello," the D-Class called out. There was no response. "Hello," he asked again. The only response was that same soft gurgling. Then he said one more thing. "I don't want to die in this goddamn town." The recorded response was uproarious, cacophonous laughter belonging to a chorus of over 10,000 voices. The sound was nearly deafening. There are undercover Foundation personnel stationed outside of SCP-3182, instructed to prevent any civilians from entering the premises. Civilians who ask follow-up questions are to be given the cover story involving unstable construction. Any past witnesses to a Deimos event must be located and given amnestics dosed in relation to their level of exposure. Because the town of Denton is relatively isolated, any affected individuals should be easy to track down. No Foundation personnel are permitted to enter SCP-3182 during a Deimos event. Any testing conducted during a Deimos event must be approved by at least one Level 3 personnel. However, if any personnel report hearing a soft, gurgling sound while inside the building, they are ordered to vacate immediately. SCP-3182 is a tragic mystery, an abandoned, decaying piece of a town steeped in misery. Like the town itself, it is filled with fear and uncertainty, with a pervasive sense of hopelessness, of no way out during the darkest moments. I have heard from time to time the expression, dead-end job, and I understand it to apply fairly well in this case. Those working at SCP-3182 while it was open seemed to fill the place with so much misery, so much dread and resentment, that something anomalous began to take root. Something, for 1 hour a day, makes those fears real. The people in SCP-3182 believed it to be a dead end, a place where hopes and dreams go to die. And now, it is. Check out the DrBob Patreon and become a junior researcher today. Now go and watch another entry from the files of DrBob, like SCP-2740, It Wasn't There.